Well, I'm joined by Barry Murphy here in the studio, and obviously we sometimes talk about taxis, but this one is definitely about Manx Gas. Yeah. It's a bit of a follow-up from your last protest, and I have to say before, it wasn't the biggest turnout. You must have been a bit disappointed with what happened there.
I was very disappointed with the turnout.
You've got 1,500 members on that group. And
plus, it's gone up. It's pushing up towards 1,600 now.
And 15 people turn up, something?
I'd say probably at the early stages there was probably more like 20, but by the end, it was probably only about 10.
Okay, but that's
very disappointing.
Right. On the positive side, the BBC interview that you did, there's a quote from the Minister now saying that there's a deadline for Manx Gas to come up with something. So that's positive. I mean, I haven't seen it anywhere else. So just on that interview, he hasn't said it. I don't think, unless I've missed it. April is a certain date.
24th of April. 24th of April 2020 is the deadline set by the Policy Reform Minister to agree a new regulatory deal, to voluntary, from what I understand, a voluntary agreement.
Okay. Not hard hitting that they have to do it.
Well, from what I understand, if they don't agree by the 24th, they're going to have regulation imposed on them.
Right. What do you feel about that?
I hope they don't agree. I'd prefer.
Sorry, you hope they don't agree?
Yeah.
Why would that be?
Because I'd prefer if they had regulation imposed on them.
Oh, I see. Rather than just sort of
because I've said this from the start. I don't see, and I've not seen from the very start, that this voluntary agreement situation works.
Yeah.
I mean, for 4 years, me and our group have fought this, and I'm sure there's other gas users out there that would agree it hasn't worked, because what it seems to have done is it seems to have given Manx Gas too much freedom, too much flexibility. It's given the customers zero freedom and flexibility, and it's clearly given the government zero freedom and flexibility either. And I've also said right from the very start that the OFT need to be removed, and we need an independent regulator, and we just need.
Did the OFT never do it? I mean, they come up numerous times about what they don't do on the Isle of Man. Have they been toothless as far as you're concerned?
I can't say. I mean, I'm not going to say in general what the OFT do, because I mean, it's over the 24, 25 years I've been in the Isle of Man, I've used the services of the OFT a couple of times, and they've been very good.
But you want an independent regulator. Another Quango, technically.
I do. I want an independent regulator, totally independent of the consumer, of Manx Gas and of government, because I see that the OFT, they're too close to government. Mm-hmm. I see them as conflicted. But what I also have learnt from the start, really, is that the OFT, in my opinion, and in the opinion of an expert of utility companies that has actually met with the government committee way back in 2017. That person explained to the committee why a department, a Quango, whatever you want to call the OFT, cannot be suitable as a regulator for a utility company such as Manx Gas. There's very many reasons why, and very many of them reasons I don't fully explain.
You chose your words very carefully, by the way, there, weren't you? So
I do try.
I mean, I think the steam packet years ago there was a massive problem there, but it never got resolved about the OFT. But anyway, let's get to this 9.99% business. This is what is the crux of it to some degree. They're guaranteed they can take that money away each year, and this new regulation would affect that, presumably. That's got to be the crux of the matter, right? They've got to have a new agreement on how much money they can automatically make. Am I right? Is that what you're hoping, anyway?
That's how I see it. 4 years of 4 years of campaigning, 3 years, I guess, of the government and Manx Gas trying to work out the future has led me, at this very point in time, to believe that the only problem that Manx Gas and the Isle of Man government committee, the Policy and Reform Minister, don't agree on is the profit margin. We've said from the very start that we believe it to be far, far, far too high. It's clear that the government believe it's far too high, and it's clear that Manx Gas think that it's at the very least the right amount. But what we're saying is that it must be much less.
We're living in a world where technically the future of any sort of burning of fossil fuels could be in question. I mean, there's targets set 2025 for that sort of thing. And do you see the point that it almost I don't know, the whole thing will become a thing that we don't have to worry about because people won't be able to use these sort of fuels maybe in the future.
I've not seen the targets for 2025.
It would say fossil fuels. That could be just coal, of course. I mean, I don't know what exactly either, but
I've briefly read the
heating. I think it was for.
Yeah, I mean, I've briefly read the current report. I mean, it's a very long report, and I have actually took the time to sort of scan through it and to see which bits and pieces may or may not be linked with.
I might not be right on that date,
with what we're doing. Well, I actually think it's a 20 to 25 year plan.
Yes,
which that would actually take us through to 2045, 2050.
Yeah.
But of course, there's people out there would like it to be brought much back. Of course, there'll have to be improvements in the meantime. But bringing it back to where I come from, I'm only interested at this stage in a 5-year plan for gas consumers moving forward. And it's very clear that even in new build houses to this very day, to the present day, there's gas boilers going in. In the many corporation commissioners' houses around the island, they've had their oil boilers stripped out. They've had gas boilers installed. We have to get a fair deal. The time for excuses is long gone. There's no more excuses regarding climate, regarding profits, regarding anything. The government have said very clearly. Mr. Thomas has said very clearly, possibly informally, but it's gone on record, on the 24th of April 2020, there has to be an agreement.
Now, first of all, the banding thing's all changed again. That's done and dusted.
Yeah.
Which has seen people now get presumably a heavier winter gas bill.
Yeah.
Was everyone in favour of that, or just because obviously some people have quite liked it being averaged out over the year? So
see, we've campaigned for several things. I mean, we right from the very start, we've not just campaigned on banding standing charges, so we've not just campaigned on profit margins. We've campaigned for the social tariff, which Manx Gas have agreed, and sometime in the future they're going to put that in place. But what we've also said, or certainly what I said, there should be a choice of tariffs. I've openly said from the start that there should be a choice of utility companies. Clearly, that's not going to happen on an island this size.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No.
But because we haven't got the choice of utility companies, we should have a choice of tariffs. And I've said that several times. It's very clear that the banding system may have suited some people more than other people, but it's also very clear to me, and not to probably thousands of other gas consumers, that if our campaign hadn't have got its claws into banding standing charges at the very start, many consumers would have been banded up. But there was no banding up, to my knowledge, from at least 2018. So for the last 2 years, whilst that banding standing charge system was in place, no matter how much gas you used, you would not be banded up. So you would either stay on the band you were on, or you would be banded down. If my group that I administer hadn't have got involved, people would have been banded up, and it would have gone close up to £2.50 a day if they hadn't been careful.
Well, Barry, got lots more to talk about, so we'll have a part 2 of this interview.